Okay, so it really just keeps getting worse, doesn't it? For those of you who have been out of the loop recently, the French division of Starbreeze has been closed down. Some of the staff were laid off at the end of last month, and the rest are leaving in a couple of months from now. This week though, we found out that not only are the employees who have been working from home not going to be reimbursed for the costs they incurred while working at home, but more damningly, it seems like Mats Yule may have allegedly lied in official documentation in order to avoid paying these members of staff what they're owed. I can't speak with any authority as to whether or not that's true. We will be looking at the article though that alleges this, but if that is true, then it seems like Starbreeze have potentially been up to more criminal activity during 2025 than the Payday gang have been so far. Bearing in mind that we're about a third of the way through April and still know nothing about the first heist releasing in 2025. Before we take a look at the article itself, I just want to make it abundantly clear that what we're going to be taking a look at is pretty serious, and therefore I am not saying with 100% certainty that this is true, though the 80 level coverage of internal affairs at Starbreeze has been relatively spot on so far. So what exactly has been said that is allegedly false? Upon the Starbreeze employees requesting reimbursement for the additional expenses they took on while working from home, they were denied, and the reason they were given isn't a very good one at all. What this letter tries to say boils down to the fact that the French studio was initially closed due to COVID-19, and as such, it wasn't actually at Starbreeze's request that these employees had to work from home. After the pandemic's restrictions were lifted, many of the employees expressed their desire to continue working remotely, which Starbreeze accepted. Essentially, this letter highlights that Starbreeze didn't request these employees work from home, they just accepted the request from the employees to continue working from home. Therefore, technically, it isn't actually on Starbreeze to cover any additional expenses. They cite a piece of case law here that, as I understand it, bearing in mind I'm not a lawyer, means that if an employee requests to work from home, that the company isn't obliged to cover any of their additional expenses for them doing so. However, if an employee is told by the company they need to work from home, then the company is obliged to cover some of those additional expenses. Essentially, whoever's decided that the employee should work from home is responsible for the additional expenses. If it's the company's choice, they should contribute. If the employee is making that choice on their own, then it's up to them. Again, to be clear, I'm not claiming to know these laws inside and out, I've just done a little bit of research into them before making this video. Before we talk about the alleged lie, I want to say that I don't know what periods these reimbursement requests were for. I would assume by now that any outstanding reimbursements from around the time of COVID have been settled, or at the very least moved on from. I'm assuming that these reimbursements that were requested by the employees and were denied were for a more recent time, and the reason COVID was brought up by Starbreeze was a way of reminding these employees that it was their decision to work from home. I don't know that to be the case, I just think that it's important for me to say so that you know the mindset in which I'm approaching what I say next. So, to be crystal clear, I think that this is about recent reimbursements, and COVID was brought up as a reminder of the reason behind the circumstance we find ourselves in now, and specifically the reason Starbreeze don't feel obliged to reimburse these employees. With all of that said, let's talk about the alleged big lie. It seems like the reason given, being that the office was initially closed due to COVID, wasn't actually true. Yeah, according to 80 level sources, the French office was closed on April 19th, 2019, which is obviously quite a bit of time before the pandemic began, let alone the national lockdowns being put in place. 80 level even cites the Q1 2019 financial statement, which mentioned the cancellation of rental agreements and speculates that those rental agreements were likely the Paris office. A Starbreeze whistleblower has been quoted as saying the following: Mats Yule lied to the French employees in an official communication, a letter sent with the Starbreeze logo, company branding, and his signature. In it, he states that the closure of the Paris office was caused by an order from the French government because of COVID-19. That is simply false. It wasn't a miscommunication, it wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a lie. And to make matters worse, the whistleblower claims to have been told that this has been explained to Mats multiple times, and yet no apology or correction has been made. Now, if that is true, that is a pretty damning quote. Again, I know nothing more about this than what is in the article itself, so please understand that I'm not throwing any accusations of my own towards Starbreeze or Mats Yule, I'm simply going over what is already already been said. There is a little more to that quote that I've just read out, and of course, the rest of the 80 level article is definitely worth reading as well. Speaking of things that are definitely worth doing, if you're enjoying the video so far, all I ask is that you consider clicking that subscribe button. We currently have the goal of reaching 5,000 subscribers before Payday 3's next heist is released, and if we manage to reach that goal, I'll be going back to play and review all of the Payday 2 heists that I never had the chance to experience as a console player because they were released exclusively on PC. There is something else quite big that's happened this week we should probably talk about. Mio has announced that he is no longer at Starbreeze. This is honestly a terrible blow to the creative force behind Payday 3. Sadly, a significant amount of the player base will know Mio from the ammo funnel and replenish saga from around 8 months ago. That really wasn't a good time to be part of the Payday community, nor was it a good time to be Mio, I imagine. Personally, I've received enough negative comments that if I had a penny for every time I had to read a comment telling me to throw myself off of the top of First World Bank, if you know what I mean, simply because I talk about Payday 3 in a slightly more positive tone and less doom posting, I'd probably be able to buy the Syntax Error DLC. So I can't imagine what it must have been like for Mio to see the reaction to the proposed changes, and of course the dreadful Mio must go hashtag. Moving away from the ammo funnel and replenish situation, because that's not how Mio should be remembered, I wanted to take a look at his post announcing his departure from Starbreeze, in which he clarifies a number of things. Firstly, Mio didn't work on the original armor system, but he did design Armor 2.0, and while that is yet to be released, frustratingly, the initial blog post that explains how it would work was received exceptionally well by the community. There is a reason we're so excited for Armor 2.0, it's shaping up to be a bloody good system. Mio also explains that he designed the Overskill system, which has been released and was received really well. There are a bunch of other things in here that Mio attributes to himself that were again received very positively by the community, such as the LMG being the first free weapon to be added to the game. These are the things that Mio should be remembered for. He even alludes to some other pieces of his work that aren't currently out yet, so although Mio is gone, we might not have seen the last of his work or influence. He mentions that he was behind the initial skill system, but only had 2 weeks to work on it. That is pretty upsetting. I'm not sure how that ended up happening internally, but that's a really shocking thing to find out. All in all, while we aren't going to feel it right away, Mio's departure from Starbreeze is definitely something that is going to affect the game. I wish I had something more positive to bring up towards the end of this video so that we could end on a slightly higher note, but sadly, this just isn't the week for that. We recently spoke about Starbreeze's new CEO, as well as some of the more honest insights Almir had to share with the community on stream. You can click the video on screen now to learn more about that. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.